Lost Lake, a Detective Gemma Monroe mystery. Book 3, by Emily Littlejohn. Narrated by Harper Landry. Prologue. Something wakes her in the early hours. Beyond the flimsy nylon walls of the tent, it is still dark. They went to bed after midnight, so she guesses it is 4 or 5 in the morning. The sun will rise soon, and with it another day. Another breakfast, another hike, another lunch, another fight. She listens and realizes the sounds of the lake have changed. Gone is the gentle wind moving through the trees. The bullfrog has stopped its belligerent croak. The ice cracking against the shore has settled down. It was the silence that woke her. She sits up slowly, careful not to disturb Mac. He lies on his back, one hand resting on his stomach, the other hidden in the depths of his sleeping bag. Mac looks like a little boy in sleep, his lips slightly parted, the faintest scowl line across his strong brow. She hopes he is having a nightmare. Then she feels bad and wonders if the baby will have his strong brow, his red hair. She wonders if she cares. She gently untangles herself from the sleeping bag and then from the tent. Slipping on her boots, leaving them untied, she stands, stretching, scanning the campsite by the little light that remains from the waning moon. She stares for a moment at the red tent, pitched 15 feet away, on the opposite side of the still smoldering campfire pit. The 2 people inside the red tent were strangers yesterday. She wonders if the wine and weed and close quarters of the night have left them better acquainted. Nothing would surprise her anymore. She walks to the edge of the campsite and stares down at the dark, still water, not daring to go any closer. Lost Lake. The air is freezing and she shivers. She hugs herself and looks at the far shoreline. There was a campfire last night across the water. She is sure of it. She saw the smoke. She wonders who else is here. Who else is mad enough to spend the night on this still frozen ground along the shores of this icy lake. She moves slowly, heading back toward the warmth of her sleeping bag. The silence remains. Chapter 1. I stood at the edge of Lost Lake and raised a hand to my forehead to shield my eyes from the bright sun. Accustomed to the gloomy, overcast skies of March and April, I had left my sunglasses at home. But this, the second Saturday in May, was one of those warm spring days when the temperature edged pasty 60 degrees, and the sky was blue enough to make the gray winter begin to fade from memory. My head hurt from a long night of broken sleep with my 6-month-old teething daughter, and 1 too many glasses of Pinot Noir over dinner with my fiancé, Brody Sutherland. I closed my eyes against the glare and instead let the language of the lake wash over me. The crack of the melting ice that lined the water's edge. The young aspen leaves whispering to one another over the sound of the gentle breeze. The splash of water as an eagle dipped down and plucked an unsuspecting fish from the middle of the lake. The bird's movements as deliberate as a stealth bomber. It should have felt peaceful, but there was a roughness to the pastoral scene, like a pencil sketch that has been handled by greasy fingers, the edges smudged. By June, the area would be flush with hikers and fishermen. Both groups would come hungry. The hikers for the chance to see the annual wildflower bloom of lapis and indigo lupines sprawling up the mountains on the far side of the lake, and the fishermen for the plump trout and bass. But this early in the season? The few people hardy enough to try to reach the lake would trek 2 miles uphill, traversing melting snow and muddy, soggy soil. There was the ever-present threat of bears, too, just waking from their long winter slumber. Bears that were hungry. Opening my eyes, I turned from the lake and stared back at the small group huddled around the unlit fire pit. Why had they come here? To Lost Lake. There were dozens of camping spots scattered throughout the lower valley, any one of them more accessible than this place. The water was frigid, the wildflowers still in hibernation. It was pleasant now, nearly midday, but without the sun, temperatures would plummet. The ground would have made a cold bed last night. Yet the group had chosen to come here, and now one of them was missing. Sari Chesney. Lost at Lost Lake. The ice cracked again. It made an eerie, otherworldly sound, and I left the lake's edge and trudged back to the group, careful to avoid the muddy collage of footprints that seemed to lead both somewhere and nowhere. They stared at me, the 2 men and 1 woman. The woman spoke first. "I'm very worried that something has happened to her." Her name was Allison Chang, but she preferred to be called Allie. She told me she was Sari's best friend. "Has Sari ever done anything like this before? Gone off without leaving word?" "No, never. Sari's very responsible," Allie said. "She knows we would worry." Max Stevens added, "I agree with Allie. I have a bad feeling about this, Detective Monroe." "Please call me Gemma." Mac was Sari's boyfriend, a big bear of a man with messy red hair. He was the only one of the group that I had seen before. He was a nurse at the hospital in town and had given my daughter, Grace, her first set of shots. He didn't remember me, though, or if he did, he didn't say anything. "I think someone has taken her," Mac continued. "This place is remote as hell. Anyone could have snuck up on us and kidnapped her." "Kidnappings are rare, especially in a place like this, with you 3 right here." I gestured back to the lake. "I hate to ask the obvious, but is there any chance she went for a swim?" Mac and Allie shook their heads vigorously. "Sari nearly drowned as a child in a boating accident. She hates the water. She only agreed to come because Mac bullied her into it," Allie said, with a troubled glance toward Mac. He met Allie's glare with one of his own. "That's not true, Allie, and you know it. Yes, Sari hates the water, but she loves hiking and camping. She was happy to come." I glanced at the second man. Aside from giving me his name, Jake Stevens, Mac's cousin, he had remained silent, watching the conversation unfold. "Look, there's no evidence to indicate a crime has occurred. Sari's an adult, and her keys, driver's license, and cell phone are all missing. That's a good sign. Everything points to the likelihood that she left the campsite of her own accord," I said, reflecting on the handful of missing person cases I had worked in my 6 years with the Cedar Valley Police Department. In each case but one, the individual had turned up within a day. The one person who never returned was later tracked to a commune in Las Vegas. Allie seemed to have a change of heart, and she nodded her head in agreement. Color flared in her cheeks, giving her a sunburnt look. "You know, I bet you're right. Sari can be a little nutty. She's been stressed with work lately. I wonder if she got restless and just up and left in the middle of the night." "Even though that would mean walking out in the dark through the big bad woods?" Jake asked. He stared at Allie, his black hair peeking out from under a blue knit beanie cap. He was in his early 20s, a few years younger than Mac and Allie. His eyes, as dark as his hair, were unreadable behind a pair of thick horn-rimmed eyeglasses. Allie shrugged. "Maybe. If I was as stressed as she's been, I might do the same."